Hello everyone, welcome to GS Core. My name is Abhishiekh Saxena and I teach Public Administration, Governance and Social Justice. So today's session is about the ultimate analysis. Basically, as part of the ultimate analysis, we try and break down the topic at hand towards greater details so that end-to-end clarity is achieved regarding the concepts. And I've deliberately chosen a topic called Aspirational Blocks Programme for today because of multiple reasons. First, its relevance with syllabus. Second, it being in the news, right? And I'll be taking your queries live as we go about this session. So I will detail out the program and its relevance for the syllabus. At the same time, we'll try and hint towards how questions are asked in the examination. So let's begin. So when we talk about programs as such, right, the very specific line which is mentioned in the syllabus is government policies and interventions. Government policies and interventions for development and government policies and interventions for development in various sectors. So that's again a keyword here, in various sectors and issues arising out of their design and implementation. So if we look at the structure of the UPSC Civil Services examination at various levels, we find that ultimately at any level for that matter, the UPSC tests few things. That is the concept, right? And the understanding of that concept based on the candidate's ability of critical thinking. Right? So this journey from concept and finally manifesting itself as part of a question is very interesting, and the journey backwards, because every question needs to be pinned up to a concept, right? A concept which is given in our syllabus, or a concept through which which gets associated with the syllabus even indirectly. So while, just like I said, the syllabus mentions government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and issues arising out of their design and implementation, so it is actually testing why a particular program or an intervention has been made, the design, the challenges, the possible solutions, and the bottlenecks which may arise. Okay, and mostly we have seen that UPSC alludes to some programs which are hot in news in the examination or have a large footprint. For example, Manrega continues to be relevant even today, though it's a very old program. So that is why I've chosen Aspirational Blocks Programme in a way to map this entire journey for you and demystify how the questions gets asked in the examination. So as far as our approach goes, we will be talking about the program, and I hope now it is amply clear that how this particular topic relates to the syllabus. We have seen questions being asked as part of GS paper 2 vis-a-vis WASH scheme, right? And vis-a-vis other schemes and programs, whether it is about urbanization, problems related to urban matters, rural matters, right? Even in subjects like public administration or ethics related to ethics in governance or the ethical conduct of public servants. So all these things basically span the gamut of the issues that we need to touch, or the subjects that we need to keep a tab on. So when we look at the aspirational districts program, aspirational blocks program, we will first have to understand that when we are saying towards inclusive and equitable development, the relationship between things like governance, development, and the entire idea of the discipline of governance and social justice, because things are linked. I govern for health, I govern for education, I govern for sanitation, eradication or removal of poverty, other disabilities through the governance mechanism. Also, these are the very disabilities that link the vulnerable sections of the society and hence are a topic of interest for social justice. So here we will have to look for development as a far more holistic concept and not just from the lens of economic growth, right? We will also have to see how this economic growth is distributed across the society. If it is getting captured by the few elite in the society, whether power or political elite, or whether the business elite, and the majority portion of the society remains wanting of that growth or that fruits of development, then we cannot say that we are doing development in the real sense. So just like Dr. Amartya Sen has qualified the idea of development and social development leading to the national development through the removal of unfreedoms, right? Unfreedoms basically that chain the people, that block the people from realizing their own potential, right? And as part of the governance paradigm, which is a multi-stakeholder, multi-dimensional paradigm of state, market, and civil society, the government makes direct interventions as well as indirect interventions. So either through this process, the government provides the goods and services, or it creates a framework where the citizens can plug and play and realize their own potential. So in a way, removing those unfreedoms which Dr. Sen talks about, enabling the citizen to realize own potential. And for that, basically the government makes various policies and interventions. Okay, so that is the very fundamental idea of government policies and intervention, its significance, right? That why it is needed. And in this light, we see that the government has initiated multiple programs. So let us talk about the Aspirational Blocks Program. But before we go into it, let me see that if you are there, because these were the basic ideas about how the entire edifice of governance has been conceptualized and why the government make the interventions. So if I can see there are quite many people watching, so if you have any doubts, you can simply type in your doubts in the live chat and I'll be happy to answer them. Not at the end always, but during the course of the session, right? So let us look at the Aspirational Blocks Program. So this program was in the works, we can see from end of the last year, and in January during the conference of the chief secretaries, it was basically getting crystallized. The union budget mentioned it, and hence this program is towards now in the implementation stage. Basically, the idea of this program, the central idea of this program is inspired from the Aspirational Districts Program. So if we recall the Aspirational Districts Program, it was introduced in the year 2018 regarding 112 districts which were identified to having been lacking in the overall development, right? Because the governments at every levels, whether center, state, local, carry out multiple interventions to bring about the development for the people. So Aspirational District Program focused on 112 districts, and with the reasonable success of this program, it was said that while this program largely was centered around the rural India or capturing districts as a whole, right, a lot of urban component was not included here, and hence the blocks program has been thought about as an idea on the lines of the Aspirational District Program to bring about holistic development with taking block. So in the urban development landscape, we have various forms of local government, municipal party, municipal corporations, etc. And we have our own structure. In that, here the block has been taken as the unit, and 500 blocks across the country are to be identified for this surgical intervention to bring about the improvement in the development levels. So let me see if somebody is there, if a question is there. Okay. So I hope इतना समझ में आ रहा है सबको, right? Everybody is getting that कि development से हमारा क्या मतलब है, what do we mean by development, और एक समावेशी विकास जिसकी हम बात करते हैं, एक comprehensive holistic development, what do we mean? It is not just related to the economic growth. सिर्फ economic growth से related नहीं है कि GDP बढ़ रही है तो साहब development हो रही है. No, it is not like that. Okay, हो सकता है that development, that growth is getting captured. कुछ ही लोग उस growth से फायदा उठा रहे हैं, अमीर और अमीर हो रहा है, गरीब और गरीब हो रहा है. ठीक है, तो how that growth is distributed, that is the idea. And in that, उस growth को बहुत ज्यादा इंक्लूसिव बनाने के लिए, एक इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ के लिए, एक इंक्लूसिव सोशल होलिस्टिक डेवलपमेंट के लिए, एक सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट के लिए, ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट को देखना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. सो द कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव आइडिया ऑफ डेवलपमेंट गेट्स मोर इंपॉर्टेंस बिकॉज दैट ओनली विल लीड टू inclusive and equitable development, and that is the guiding philosophy behind the Aspirational Blocks Program. Because if we look at the length and breadth of the country, pardon me for my poor map skills, right, and Kashmir is very much a part of India, the entire Kashmir, right, so there are regional disparities, right? For example, we can say disparity between, let us say, Jaipur and Patna, right, Delhi and Chennai, or Mumbai or Hyderabad. So these are tier 1 cities, right? But there might be smaller cities, Kanpur, for example, Coimbatore, another example. Okay, so regional wise also there are various gaps, and within a state, if you have multiple cities, can we say that Nagpur is as developed as Mumbai in all the aspects? No, we can't, right? And within cities also, if we see a city state like Delhi, within Delhi also you have more developed areas and less developed areas. So you have more developed blocks and less developed blocks. So as to bring about equitable and inclusive development, this program has been initiated to raise the levels. The ones who are doing good is fine. to raise the levels of the ones which are not doing so good. So that is the broader idea if we look at the aspirational blocks program, because similar was the idea for aspirational districts program, in which 112 most backward districts were targeted. Okay, basically the central idea was to bring about improvement in the implementation of the performance of these areas which are lagging behind in the development parameters. ऐसा तो हो नहीं सकता that we can simply say that okay, this place is less developed or this place is more developed. कुछ तो criteria होगा. There must be some criteria to identify which is more developed and which is less developed. And in broader light, I can say that sustainable development goals do give us that sort of a broad yardstick, right? And in that, if we include the element of statistics in figures, that what is the literacy rate, health facilities, etc., then we can simply say that okay, this place needs intervention in health, this place needs intervention in education, this place needs intervention in sanitation. So the idea is very, very surgical. It strikes at the core of governance and development deficit. जहां कमी है डेवलपमेंट और गवर्नेंस की, जहां वो गैप है, उस गैप को फिल करना है. So that is the kind of the idea of aspirational blocks program. So it is not a one size fits all approach कि सारे डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स के लिए हम एक ही काम करेंगे. नहीं, we won't do that. We will look into these districts and find out where the gap is. So somewhere there might be a gap in education, at the other district there might be a gap in health, for example, and surgical interventions will be made so as to realize the development levels or to improve the development levels of that particular block. Block as a unit has been selected because it is a rational unit in terms of population and scale. बहुत माइक्रो लेवल पे तो नहीं कर सकते. We can't go to every home and see how much you earn, whether you own a TV, fridge, AC or whatnot, right? Whether you are literate or not. But एक block level पे, because that is a sustainable means, viable means. Okay. So the idea is initially to cover 500 districts, 500 blocks across the country, right? And as I said, it is based on aspirational districts program. So now it becomes vital for us to understand the philosophy for aspirational districts program, because that philosophy is getting in a way copied here. So aspirational district program, if we look at, as I said, it was announced in the year 2018, basically to transform the districts that have low growth parameters and development parameters in key social areas. So these are the districts which were characterized by low socio-economic. Remember, if we are talking about economic growth just in absolute numbers, we are just talking about economy. When we include the holistic aspect, जब हम एक समावेशी दृष्टिकोण से देखते हैं, तब socio-economic, we look at the social और सामाजिक reality को भी हम इसमें देखेंगे. So low socio-economic parameters. Okay. Ab, when we look at the program implementation on part of the government, whether center, state, local. So you have government, center, state and local, and all of them are now working for development. But at times they are working at cross purposes, or there is a lack of convergence in terms of program implementation. Rather than programs supporting each other, where irrespective of the state level from which it is coming, at times they conflict. For example, you have the Ayushman Bharat mission. A lot of states also have similar missions, right? So which hospital to empanel where? That's a problem, right? A citizen having two cards, one for the state government beneficiary scheme, the other for the central government beneficiary scheme, right? Data mismatch. State government says this is the beneficiary, central government says this is not the beneficiary. So there is a lot of confusion. Ultimately, this chaos leads to lackluster or very, very slow program implementation. Who suffers? The common citizens, you and me. So there is that lack of convergence which needs to be brought about. And if we look at the structure of a district, it is the district officer or district collector or district magistrate, no matter the nomenclature, right, who acts as the fulcrum or the main point from which the development flows in the district. And this person also gets confused what to do. So there is that lack of convergence which happens. So if you recall, regarding Ayushman Bharat health cards, now it was said that the same health cards will be used for the various state schemes, right? It was a development about 4 or 5 months ago, if you are following current affairs. So this convergence has to be brought about between the center and the state scheme for the fact, one, for better citizen services or citizen centricity. Second, why to waste resources or create redundancy and duplicacy of resources? The resources saved through better convergence can be utilized for other priorities. ऐसा तो है नहीं कि priorities नहीं है. ये देश अभी developing है. This is a developing country and there are many priorities, rather competing priorities. तो हम बेहतर काम कर पाएंगे ना? Right? So the central idea behind ADP was to bring convergence between center and state schemes. And that is also the idea of Aspirational Blocks Programme. Because ho kya raha hai? That if this is a block or a district, understand the philosophy. You cannot do interventions because these interventions are working at cross purposes or are colliding with each other. So you bring about convergence, hence enhance the quality of implementation, right? You enhance the qualitative aspects of implementation, thereby ensuring better service delivery to citizens, hence carrying out better development. Okay, so that is the broader approach. Next, we see that a lot of state governments and central governments are at times at loggerheads. लड़ाई चलती रहती है. चीफ मिनिस्टर कुछ कह रही हैं या कह रहे हैं एंड सेंटर से होम मिनिस्टर या प्राइम मिनिस्टर या यूनियन मिनिस्टर कुछ और कह रहे हैं. लड़ाई चल रही है. Right? We have seen with regards to various programs, whether it is Pradhan Mantri Awas, etc., some sort of confusion, some sort of, collision happening. तो क्या ये सही है? उन दोनों की लड़ाई में सिटीजन को कुछ नहीं मिल रहा था. Citizen is left and the citizen interest is left on the margins. And ultimately what is suffering? Governance and development, or governance for development. Right? So rather than this collision, a cooperation is needed at the ground level. So the idea of aspirational districts program and the idea of aspirational blocks program is the same, right? Where collaboration happens between the center and the state governments through the good offices of the district collector on the ground, that there is a synergy in implementation of the scheme and the program. So that is the idea. Various, central and state governments programs combining to provide for public interest. Also, एक बड़ा interesting method है. So the point is that ठीक है, every district will do their bit. But most of the time we have seen that districts and the officials at the district levels basically do only the task of compliance. जैसा कहा जाए वैसा ही करें, या जैसा चल रहा है वैसा चलने दें. इंप्रूवमेंट का स्कोप नहीं होता. There is very little scope for improvement. Why? Because things are routine, चल रहा है. So why not bring in competition? That who performs better will be sort of rewarded, at least appreciated or acknowledged. So the idea is to boost competition in a healthy manner between various districts through a system of delta rankings. I will detail on delta rankings later. Okay, because we are in the 21st century and data एक बड़ी important चीज है. So हर चीज measure हो रही है, right? So the idea is to use basically data and the administrative tools and combine them to come out with figures and deductions and extrapolations that who is doing what and what is the scope and whether what is being done rightly, right? Basically district को एक आधार बनाकर और block को एक आधार बनाकर as a unit of development, that we need to focus on the unit of this development, right? We will calculate and through a very very empirical systematic approach. यहां वहां vagueness का scope नहीं है. There is no scope of vagueness. Things will be in figures, right? So that is the idea. So what happens in these is, now let us look at the mechanism, how this thing actually works out. So Muzammil, before I move that, Muzammil says growth and development, two different things. Yes, that is correct. Pursue, I guess, wants to ask if diagram बनाना कितना important है. See, diagram बनाना important इसलिए नहीं है कि वो आंसर को अच्छा बना रहा है. The point is, आपने अगर समझा है and if you are articulating that well, it is good. But diagram बनाने से क्या है? Ultimately, there is a human being who will evaluate your answer, right? अब आप उसको कम मेहनत करवाते हो, ज्यादा मेहनत करवाते हो, वो उस पर डिपेंड करता है. ठीक है, तो वो न्यूट्रल है. डायग्राम आपने बना दिया और वो डायग्राम अपने आप में सेल्फ कम्युनिकेटिंग है. दैट व्हाट डू यू थिंक एंड हैव यू अंडरस्टूड द टॉपिक, राइट? तो वो डायग्राम देखेगा, उसको देखते ही समझ में आ जाएगा. इट्स लाइक आई डिस्क्राइब यू द अपीयरेंस ऑफ अ पर्सन, you will take some time to recognize that person. But if I show you the photograph of that person, you can immediately recognize, okay, I know this person or not, right? तो उससे एकदम से समझ में आता है. तो वो जो न्यूट्रल है वो एकदम से आपकी तरफ फेवरेबली डिस्पोज हो जाता है, तो आप मार्क्स ज्यादा फेच करते हो. ऑल्सो डायग्राम्स हेल्प यू सेव वर्ड्स. हम एग्जाम लिख रहे हैं एंड द रियलिटी इज वेदर यू आर राइटिंग एन ऑप्शनल और अ जीएस पेपर, वर्ड लिमिट के साथ आप रिस्ट्रिक्टेड है. You are restricted by the word limit, also by the space. ठीक है? So you cannot go on and on about it. You will have to demarcate your territory. You will have to demarcate the boundary, where to start, where to end, right? And how deep you can go in the concept based on the demand of the question. So diagram helps you cut on words because they explain a lot of things. But there is a caution, and friends, there is a caution. Never ever make a diagram and leave it unlabeled. डायग्राम को लेबल करना, ये क्या बता रहा है, और उसका थोड़ा सा एक ब्रिज बनाना जो आप टेक्स्ट में लिख रहे हो. ओके, दैट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि ये ब्रिज आप बनाइए और ये लेबलिंग आप कीजिए. इफ यू हैवंट डन दैट, योर डायग्राम विल बी लाइक एन आइसोलेटेड पीस. बिरयानी में इलायची की तरह हो जाएगी, उसका स्वाद तो आएगा बट वो न्यूसेंस लगेगी. ठीक है? सो इसलिए ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. ऑलराइट, लेट अस गेट बैक टू द टॉपिक. ओके, देयर इज वन मोर डाउट. Abhishiekh Kumar wants to ask, if center wants to converge, why it names schemes after PM? Since in India, electioneering mode is on at any time, naming it politically neutral might help. Well, you cannot divorce the politics and democracy, because politics is a fuel that basically keeps the democracy running. So the idea is that we here are concerned about the administration, development and governance. We are not concerned with the political parties. And jiski lathi uski bhais, ye reality hai. The point is that it names after PM. If the scheme is Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and if let us say that the name continues to be Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, right? So whosoever be the Prime Minister, how does it matter? Rather, I would say that a lot of schemes have now gone beyond the individual names. Rather, it is good that Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana or CM Awas, right? Or things like that. So that is good, because today somebody is the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister. Tomorrow somebody else might be the Chief Minister. As far as convergence is concerned, we were talking about the convergence at the implementation level, at the professional level. We were not talking about the convergence at the political party level. The multiplicity of political parties is a strength of our democracy. We should cherish that. Different ideologies actually flowering together and vying for space in a democratic manner. So that is not harmful. The convergence ought to be brought about that the provisions of this scheme and the implementation actually support each other, rather not work at cross purposes. So for that, if you need to fine tune administrative procedures, for that, if you need to maintain better surveillance and implementation criteria on the ground, if there is a, let us say, absence of coordination between various participating center and state agencies, you establish that sort of a coordination through various forums, right? Through citizen engagement, if you can channelize the corporate social responsibility funding, etc. So we are talking about the implementative aspects, not the political aspects, right? So that needs to be understood. So I hope, Abhishek, you have understood. You are my namesake, so hence a far more special attention to you. I hope you have understood. Making them politically neutral would help, in the sense it's not a guarantee. Because in India, how will you then create the process of politics if you are not in the game of credit taking? How will you inform people that we are better than the rest, or at least make a claim like that? Because the politics is the very fuel of democracy. It cannot be divorced, right? So making them politically neutral would not make much of a sense if the coordination, convergence and competition remains absent on ground. आई तो वो center से ही है ना. Everybody will know that this is a central scheme and this is a state scheme. Then the district official on the ground will be under the pressure of the Home Ministry or the State Ministry. So what's the point? Will it improve quality? I highly doubt it. Okay. Yes, he has understood. Okay. So let us move forward in this. So the idea was that to identify these development units, whether a block or a district, right, and identify a pattern, the pattern of improvement that you are trying to bring about. For example, districts, let us say there are A, B, C, D districts of block, because I'm talking about the philosophy, so it works both, for both. And they all have their varying problems, right? So what is the immediate step? Immediate step would be that you first pick up things which are low hanging fruits, in terms of which require very little effort and can make good change on the ground. So for A, it might be X, for B, it might be Y, for C, it might be X plus Y, for D, it might be X plus Y minus Z, right? Anything can be there. So very, very surgical approach towards a district or a block, looking at it as a unit, identifying the problems, the immediate terms, medium terms, that is the short term, medium terms, and the long term interventions that are needed. Okay. So idea, as I say, competition, collaboration and convergence is at the center. So the districts are encouraged basically through various measures, through interventions, through state officials of higher ranks, ministries, etc., that first you bring up your level to the best district within your state, and then you aspire to become the best district in the country, to learn best practices, engage, exchange of knowledge. If something worked in district A, will that work in my district? Right? So that kind of intervention was taken. So the idea was to foster the competitiveness and collaborativeness within the state. So at least we achieve that equity and inclusivity first at the state level, and then we will scale it up to national levels, because you cannot realistically jump to the national levels. So that is the idea. And obviously, as I said, that it cannot be achieved, it cannot be a blanket statement or a vague statement, so as to say. You will have to come up with certain criterias and objectives, because then only you can direct the action. बिना गोल के आप कैसे काम करेंगे? Your goal is to become civil servants. So without that goal, can you simply start studying without any method that, okay, first I will read the basic NCERT books, then I will go about the other supplementary books, then I will take the classes, then I will write the test. There is a method, right? So without setting the goal, you cannot define the method. At the same time, as the goal shapes up, because it is a dynamic reality, you have to make some adjustments, course corrections, reorientations in the process as well. But that goal remains the guiding light, and that goal has to be defined. When I say defined, it cannot be vague. It has to be a criteria, right? The overall sustainable development goals represent that broad goals, right? And the national reality, the national status represent the sub part of that goal. Okay. So you basically do some objective ranking, some objective assignment of figures, etc. And incremental progress is made, right? It is not an on-off switch. Overnight things cannot happen. Administration has a process, has an inertia, right? If I were to create a medical college today, it will take 5 years for first doctor to pass out of that medical college. Making of a medical college, even if I can speed up the construction in 6 months, will not yield me a doctor in 6 months. Please understand. So there is an ingrained delay. There is a gestation period, latency in the process. Understood? So the idea was to develop incrementally on 49 key parameters. Spanning across 5 broad socio-economic, remember, development parameters, namely health and nutrition. Remember, both are related, right? If you have good nutrition levels, chances are you will be healthy. If you are unhealthy, chances are you have low nutrition levels. So both are mutually reinforcing. Education, agriculture and water resources. Okay, financial inclusion and skill development. And last but not the least, infrastructure. And then all of these are divided into further categories, right? If we look at the weightage percentage that was given in terms of devising of that ranking, was 30%, 30%, 20%, 10% and 10%. Okay. So through this basically approach, the existing and the new programs are converged, right? And a cumulative performance index is devised based on the weightage, basically to empirically see and prescribe the each district that, okay, you are lacking here, you are lacking there, or you are lacking elsewhere. And then you encourage them to make interventions to plug those gaps to bring up to the levels at least of the state level, and then we will look for goals beyond at the national level. So that was the kind of the idea. This, mind you, this entire approach has been spearheaded by Niti Aayog. Right? So this entire approach has been spearheaded by Niti Aayog. So it is a far more professional, less political approach. If you were to look at the DNA of this particular approach is being brought about. Okay, so you have various government schemes. For example, Anemia Mukt Bharat, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, this and that. All of them, basically, you are trying to say that converge them together, better implement them, right? Remove the bottlenecks, so that the overall socio-economic development parameters of the districts come up. So that is the design philosophy which these programs are following. Remember, the syllabus said issues of design and implementation, right? So that is there. Now, while discussing, though I have flagged a lot of issues, let me see if there are more doubts out here. All right, I guess no more doubts to go. Meanwhile, you are free to shoot your doubts in the chat box with the live chat that is going on YouTube, and I'll be happy to answer them if you have. Okay, so that is the idea. Now, since we have looked at the broader contours of the program, now let us look at the challenges. Challenges in terms of the challenges and issues which basically plague the overall development landscape, and this particular landscape more specifically. So as the solution which this particular program provides, obviously when we say we need convergence, that means there was lack of convergence. If we say we need collaboration, there was lack of collaboration. If we see we need competition, there was lack of competitive spirit which was holding back the performance, right? So that is something which is there in terms of the issues. But one of the most significant aspect for any enterprise that you want to undertake is money, because without money you cannot realize any objective. So the challenges are the lack of financial resources. You might want to do a lot of good things and you might write it down on paper, but when you start doing them, you need money to mobilize men and material. Okay, so the issue is continue to be there because we are a resource scarce country, right? We do not have abundance of everything. Also, lack of collaboration, as I said, especially not just between the levels of the government, but also at the implementation levels. Just to give you an example, so there might be a highway going around a town, right? And that town has its own drainage system. And the idea is to improve the sanitation of this particular town or block. So they want to build a drainage which goes by to a waste processing plant in another block or at other part of the district. This highway is maintained by CPWD and there is the state or the local government machinery working here. So collision. Their engineer will say, this is not right, your design is flawed, our highway will get washed off by the sheer amount of drain, sheer amount of waste that you are going to throw. They'll say, no, we will dig an underground, this and that. No, highway will be stopped. Everything will be ruined. This is a super highway, part of national project, this and that. Simple thing. Lack of coordination on the ground. So these are the issues. Also, you don't have data. How do you basically identify those gaps at the micro level with the precision that you would ideally want? कैसे पता लगाएंगे? There is no that sort of a high data collection happening on the ground. The administrative data is legacy. आप जाइए, गो टू अ गवर्नमेंट ऑफिस एंड आस्क देम टू फाइंड अ फाइल. दिल से आज नहीं, कल आना, परसों आना, ये आना. Right? And this differs. While some departments will be highly digitized, they'll put your name, telephone number, and you will have your data. Some department will say 10 दिन बाद आना. And after 10 days, you will go and you will have to grease palms to get the records or just to fetch the records. निकलवा के देख लीजिए आप. जाइए म्युनिसिपल ऑफिस में और लैंड रिकॉर्ड निकलवा लीजिए, पता लग जाएगा आपको. ठीक है. So the point is you don't have data. Okay. Now, what is flawed is also the ranking methodology. If we look at the delta ranking method, and I will separately talk about delta ranking method. Delta ranking method is more of qualitative in nature, quantitative in nature. It looks at the quantity. So ये देखेगा that whether everybody is covered or not, whether that thing is accessible or not, whether everybody is able to avail that service or not, वो ये नहीं देखे. So here lies the flaw. While we are trying to improve the qualitative aspect, the delta ranking methods merely looks at numbers. That is the problem with numbers, they don't have emotions, right? तभी मैथ्स में आप फेल होते हो तो कोई कुछ नहीं बोलता आपको, मतलब कोई आपके साथ हमदर्दी नहीं दिखाता, कहता मैथ्स तो बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है, पढ़ लो. ठीक. So the point is that here we are talking about qualitative aspect as part of the entire program, but the ranking method is quantitative. So there you need to come up with more qualitative aspects, enhance the social portion of it. So that is the learning lesson for us. Okay. Though various reports do feed in and give indicators. For example, we have Swachhta Survekshan, we have ACER report on right to education, etc. Right. So they help. Okay. So that is the broader idea of the aspirational district and the aspirational block program. Okay. So before we get further into it, let me talk about the delta ranking method and this entire idea just as a fodder for you. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, equitable development and all that basically coming up. Okay. The delta ranking method basically ranks the districts on multiple grounds. For example, it would rank the districts on the improvement parameters, that least and most improved districts. In that case, blocks, because the block program is getting underway. So we are taking large inspiration from the districts program to understand the philosophy. Fast movers. So it would assign these kind of adjectives that districts basically who show leap in terms of their development scores between a certain period. So either quarterly or monthly you will compare. Okay. Then you will look at the themes, that okay, if there are districts A, B, C, D, E or blocks, and then you have all those things: education, health, infrastructure, agriculture, water resources, financial inclusion, health and nutrition, and then you would weigh in that how much improvement have they made. So in a way, very systematically positioning the central picture in front of you. Okay, so that is the broader method which aspirational districts and aspirational block program seeks to achieve. Okay, let me see if some more doubts are there. Any more doubts, friends? Anything that you would like to ask more? Anything? All right. So definitely there are multiple PIB releases for this. and it is important to bring this sort of empiricism, this sort of depth in our analysis vis-a-vis what we are doing for governance on ground. So aspirational district program or aspirational block program basically comes out as approaches which merely do not end on paper in intent. They are looking at implementation, quantifying it, looking at the quality of it, right? So as to bring about real change on the ground, right? And not just on paper. So there is a Niti Aayog page, dedicated to this. That is niti.gov.in/aspirational-districts-program, which basically guides you through various reports and the detailed methodology that is adopted, right? The performance of the aspirational districts are available in the public domain. So it has all the features of good governance in terms of, let us say, consensus orientation, right? Equity and inclusiveness, efficiency and effectiveness, transparency, accountability, rule of law, responsiveness, participation, right? So there's a portal which is there in public domain. It is called Champions of Change. So that is something for preliminary examination that might add some value, because see, governance and social justice, while it demands an analytical approach for the mains examination, in preliminary examination also a sort of deductive logic is used, right? So as well as the facts. So it gives you that sort of an information. As I always say to my students, always rely on reputed, certified kind of sources. Never rely on scrupulous sources. There were multiple editorials which covered this idea, especially before the latest budget and after the latest budget. One which I liked very much was about Parmeswaran Iyer, which was published in the Indian Express. It was called Viksit Bharat Blueprint. The title was Viksit Bharat Blueprint. So you can relate to that as well, right? So without getting more prolonged with this, let me ask you if you have any more doubts before we conclude this particular session. Also, you can address your doubts even if you are going to watch this later in the comment sections, and we would be happy to answer that. Moreover, if you have some more time, come see us at GS Score, right? And let us interact, let us discuss, let us learn together, right? So I believe I do not have any more doubts here with regards to this. So let's conclude this session. I hope that you will continue to engage with us more through various platforms and medias, right? And we'll be happy to help you out in realizing your goal for civil services examination. So that's it for this session. We'll see you soon. Thank you.